They don't want me to turn on lights because they don't want me to be a target. That's how dangerous this situation is. Flames visible. I'm going to take you back on camera if we can, Cameron, our director back there, because we need to get this. We're not going to miss this. They're starting to march right now. We're in the middle of the march. It took a direct hit from today's storms in Medill. Hitting us with some good tunes here. The Equip Life Church is handing out free hot cocoa. It is steamy. Thank you so much. Ooh, can confirm. That's really good. We're highlighting one woman a month who redefined success by achieving her goals in her way. I just wanted to introduce you to my friend Cole, who has been waiting here for, how long have you been here, you think, Cole?
Probably about 10 minutes.
Music on Main was still going to go on, but they wanted to make sure that people could do it safely. So here, masks are not required, but they are encouraged if you're going to be in close quarters with someone. So Dan, the last time we spoke, we were at Heritage Park. Now we're just across the street where that tree was just lit. So let's play it back for you, the live moment when it happened. 2, 1, 2, 1. Woo! The concert doesn't even kick off for about another hour, but we're still already having a great time. People are already dancing, having so much fun, and we've got a couple actual super fans.
For a rally of a different kind. Now, Jen, you were there. What was it like?
So it was active and angry and emotional. There were times when I was nervous being there because it was so active and emotional. And I've heard the word riot used, and I want to be clear, no one that we know of was hurt or arrested or destroyed any property, but that's not to say that the people who were there and participating in that didn't want to make a point, and they demanded to be heard.
News 12's Jen Phillips got an inside look at their operation. Jen, how are they doing it?
Yeah, so Dan, there's been 7 men that will spend a cumulative 68 years in prison. 3 will serve county time, but that's only so far. 8 more are awaiting their day in court, and they say it's all because an undercover investigation revealed secret solicitation activity using social media to target children. News 12 went behind the scenes of that sting operation and the department behind it. Well, over 20 years after a North Texas teen was killed by dating violence, the officers who first worked her case are still working to prevent this from ever happening again. It turns out one of them made his way to Texoma in the meantime.
Back in March of 2000, I was a homicide detective in Grand Prairie. It was a Saturday morning. I was called to the scene. It was in a field off of a street called Robinson Street. And at that scene was Christine Blueball, who had been murdered by her ex-boyfriend. And the ex-boyfriend in turn killed himself.
Mike Gudgel is the chief of the Denison Police Department now, but he hasn't forgotten that day. Neither has Grand Prairie Assistant Chief Ronnie Morris.
We need to arm our kids with the tools they need to defend themselves if they were to find themselves in an abusive relationship.
The best way to do that? Draft legislation.
Christine Blueball Act, which allows kids of certain ages in school to receive the education on domestic violence, child abuse, and dating violence.
Let's save lives of kids in Texas. Kids are dying at the hands of dating partners, and it is due in large part to a lack of education.
Gudgel says a bill like this could have been the difference for Christine.
The reason this bill is important is what if there would have been some education, some outcry remedies.
As a police officer, Gudgel says this case made him want to change things. As a parent, it made him want to protect his kids.
Kind of hit me at the time. Christine, I didn't know at the moment, but later found out she was a twin. I'm the father of twins. My kids were really young back then, but just seeing what the family had to go through and discovering that she had been abused by this ex-boyfriend in a dating violence situation.
Senate Bill 9 was signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott on September 17th and goes into effect on December 2nd.
This bill was named Christine Blueball Act because that was something personal to me, but Christine represents hundreds of kids that have been murdered in the state of Texas.
The officers know that it could happen to anyone, even their own kids, if they don't prepare them.
What does the face of domestic violence look like?
Look around.
Morris says on average, 6 kids a year die from dating violence in Texas.
To me, that's what the face of dating violence looks like. And, I see Christine, I see her face in my kids, and how can I not protect my kids and try to protect other people's kids when I have a platform that allows me to do that?
It's a cycle and a statistic they hope stops here.
What I would hope for Grayson County in particular is that we can get that education in the schools and we can prevent. Ultimately, that's the goal, is the prevention of this type of violence.
Reporting, Jen Phillips, News 12.
A year ago today, a Denison teacher, mother and wife, was hit and killed by a truck while walking in her neighborhood.
A Facebook group has been created in her name, and they've attracted thousands of members from all over the world. So News 12 looked at what has happened in the years since her death and where the Justice for Katie Palmer movement goes from here.
My name is John Palmer. My wife's name was Katie Palmer. As a victim and now a widower, I'm in support of House Bill 558.
On the morning of April 21st, 2020, Katie and John Palmer went for a walk in their neighborhood. 15 minutes later, their neighbor, Corey Foster, hit them from behind with his F-250, knocking them out of their shoes and throwing them yards away.
What's your name?
John broke his back and somehow still managed to crawl over to Katie, who was unresponsive after a blunt force trauma to her head.
Hey, John, is that your wife? What's her name?
Katie was flown by helicopter to a hospital where she would be pronounced dead hours later. Meanwhile, troopers began to ask Foster what happened.
I just couldn't see because the glare was so bad. Yeah. Which I shouldn't have driven.
Foster cited a foggy windshield, but a trooper on the scene mentioned another factor.
I'm smelling it pretty strong coming from your breath today, is why I'm asking how late did you stop? How late did you have your last one?
It was 7 o'clock probably.
7? Okay.
The information Foster gave the trooper was enough to perform a field sobriety test.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, that's good.
Which he passed with flying colors. He even took a breathalyzer test and blew a .06 under the legal limit. You are legally intoxicated when your BAC reaches a .08. In the state of Texas, to require a blood test in order to find a driver's blood alcohol level, you need a warrant. Since Foster passed both tests,
You guys have the blood? No, we're not going to.
the trooper didn't request a warrant.
That was still from last night.
A breathalyzer test taken in the field is inadmissible in court and can only be used as a pass-fail for further testing. Listen to this phone call he makes to a supervisor while on scene.
I can't believe he was that high still today. He's like, man, I quit drinking like at 8 o'clock last night.
Even still, the trooper was not satisfied.
He said he drinks all the time.
Oh, yeah.
He said Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, he'll have a beer cracked open.
Within an hour of arriving on the scene, the trooper drove Foster home. Nearly 4 months later, a grand jury would listen to 3 hours of testimony and deliberate for 1 hour before declining to indict him for manslaughter or criminal negligence. Foster declined to comment but referred us to his attorney, John Hunter Smith.
The system of justice worked. Everyone had the opportunity to present their position in this case. And this, in turn, was found not to be criminal in nature.
Smith called what happened last April a tragic accident.
I love my daughter. I'm not going to stop.
It was at that moment Katie's family knew their fight had only just begun. Passing House Bill 558 became paramount.
What this bill will do is it will make people accountable. That's all that we've ever asked for, is accountability and justice.
The bill would require an automatic blood test for motorists who seriously injure or kill pedestrians.
She was a great teacher and mom and wife. I just hate it for them. Every time I think about this particular incident, it just sends chills up my spine.
Texas State Representative Reggie Smith sat with John and Katie's mom, Rhonda, when they testified in Austin in favor of the bill.
We owe it to her memory to fix this.
Their story shocked lawmakers and lobbyists alike.
Almost every jurisdiction I've ever appeared in has a policy whereby if there's a death, you must seek a warrant at this point after 2013 and try to get the blood of a suspect.
For Katie's mother, the trip was further proof that the loss of her daughter is bigger than just her family. Texas lost a future leader that day.
We need leaders like you in the Senate and House, women leaders like you. And she said, Mom, 5 years, I'll do it.
For John, he has found a new purpose in fighting to make sure everyone knows Katie's life mattered.
We're willing and able to keep this fight up for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes.
Wherever it takes him.
My name is John Palmer. My wife's name was Katie Palmer. As a victim and now a widower because of the actions.
Well, District Attorney Brett Smith did comment on this case for the first time since the grand jury declined to indict Foster, saying in part, quote, "The death of Katie Palmer is a profound loss to all who knew and loved her."
And later, he went on to say, quote, "I have advised Mrs. Palmer's family should any new significant evidence arise from their lawsuit, we would certainly consider it as we would any other case," end quote. Now you can find his full statement on this story on our website, KXII.com.
In the state of Texas, the statute of limitations for criminally negligent homicide and manslaughter actually never run out. And the Palmers have a lawsuit against Foster pending in civil court. Now, House Bill 558 passed the House Committee for Homeland Security and Public Safety today with a vote of 8-1. It will move on to the full House after this. And let's get a check of the weather now. It's another chilly night, but the big story focuses on Friday. We do have potential for severe storms.
Yeah, Chief Meteorologist Steve Lenore has been